Hi there, good morning. So I have been thinking, well, I mean, we're 3 days away from the end of this election, and, so much is happening, and so much has happened, and there's so many things that have been, you know, it's not like this, I haven't gone through something in the last 10 years. Since the now Republican candidate threw his hat in to politics, 10 years ago now, about 10 years ago, and became public and serious about it, began a journey of going through something. And I'm going to be real frank in this video because it may be my last chance to say what's been on my mind and how this has been for me. And I don't care who agrees with me or not at this point. I have tap danced around so many people's feelings. I have watched my friends post things that support the demise and destruction and violence against who they think the enemy is, which is basically anybody who doesn't throw their support and love and obsession and loyalty 100% towards the candidate that they support, in the fanatical way that they support him, because there's no gray area with that. If you look at it, the people that he endorses, that he praises, besides the dictators of the world, but the people here on this soil, those people are the people that agree with him 100%, that will back his play 100%, whether he's right or wrong. In fact, there is no wrong with him. He's not capable of making a mistake. And if he did make a mistake, oh well, he just made a little mistake. Everybody makes a mistake. It's no big deal. But unfortunately, his mistakes are along the lines of they're not mistakes. They're not mistakes. He says horrible racist bullshit. He foments hate and violence against everybody who doesn't agree with him, and he's setting the stage to be able to do whatever the fuck he wants to whoever the fuck he wants to do it to. And there are people that are supporting that. In order to justify that, they continue to believe lies. They continue to promote misinformation. Why do I know that? Because I ask questions. I look deeper into things. I look at both sides. I follow the thread back to the actual data. And yeah, both sides lie. But not to the extent that this guy lies. And that's just the truth. And I'm not going to sugarcoat anymore because it's the truth. He lies more than anybody else I've ever seen in my fucking life. And I'm a recovering addict. I am around dope fiends all the time. And I want to tell you something. A lot of the dope fiend friends that I have or had, that support this guy, I'm like, where were you when I was out there trying to find people to use? Because had I known it would have been this easy to manipulate you into such devotion, wow, I could have done so much. Maybe it's a good thing, because that probably would have, killed me. There are people that is easily played once you find the right note, and that's what he did. He found the right note. Now, I have a viewpoint about that a lot of people are not going to like, but I think that we participated in this whole thing because there's a lot of people in America that I think felt forgotten, discarded, not important, written off as, just not valuable, who cares, in poverty. Although they voted against their own best interests over and over and over because that's just what that's their culture, is to vote for that guy and not this guy, because that guy is the party that they vote for. That's their party. It didn't matter that in the end that person just kept on taking. That party just kept taking from them and taking from them. None of that mattered. So they just kept perpetuating this, and they couldn't figure out why. But now all of that, instead of telling them the truth, or instead of offering them something better, this guy comes along and taps right into those long-held resentments, those that deep-seated anger and sense of loss and envy and hatred, because these are also areas that have not let go of that systemic racism. It's still there. It's still there. And so he tapped into it. He knew how to, he did. He tapped into it. He found a gold mine, and he weaponized those people and pointed them like a gun at the rest of the citizens, especially those of color. And then when he found that note was going to carry, he played it, and he played it, and he played it. And so at the beginning of all this, with the people that heard that note and felt it resonate in their hearts, and they were like, oh, he sees me. He sees me. He understands me. He's my guy. Listen to him. He's talking right to me. He understands. He cares about me. I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. Because there has been something fishy in China for a long time. And I don't mean that specifically China. I mean, that's just a saying. There's been something fishy going on in our government forever. But I will always, always, always be suspicious of somebody who points the finger entirely at all those people, or takes that understanding that people have of like there's something wrong with our government, and says it's all them over there, not us. Don't look at us, because we would never do. It's all them. In fact, they don't even say they have never done that. They just say they're the ones doing all the bad. If it's bad, it's them. And it's not true. It's not true. It's not true. So this whole thing began, and these people that began to support him, I could see that they loved him because of those things. They felt finally seen. They heard their grandfather and their fathers and their families and the things that he was saying. It was familiar to them. That's why they didn't think it was racist. Because a lot of them, if you ask them if they were racist, they'd be like, I'm not racist. I got a black neighbor. I got a Mexican nanny. I've got a, well, not nanny, a lot of them, but I mean, I'm not racist. Or if they were racist, they were like, well, oh well. But a lot of the people, they didn't even, because we as a nation have not recognized our own racism. It's a bad word. It's such a bad word that we can't afford to look at it. But it's been there all this time. And then you got the anger and the resentment, and then you got all that mixed in, and he knew how to tap into it. He played that note. They heard it. It's been resonating ever since. And that's, I think, how it began. And we had a part of that because we ignored these people that needed us to hear them. I can say that I acted like what they said didn't matter. Because who are they? They don't know. They're just in their small towns. They don't have a grip on reality. They have a grip on reality. They have a grip on their reality. Their experience is just as valid as mine, including all the ways that they've been conditioned in ways that are not good for themselves and society. Long held beliefs from their relatives going all the way back to people that landed on these shores and tried to kill every single original resident of this land. That happened, but I participated in locking them away and saying, well, because of all of that, because I'm, in general, what you're saying comes from that kind of thinking, and so I don't need to listen to that. When somebody finally came along and said, I'm listening to you, it didn't matter that that person was only doing it for their own benefit. It didn't matter, and it still doesn't matter. It still doesn't matter. This has grown into something crazy big. And so let's say election day, he doesn't win. It's not over. I've been really thinking about this, and I realized that I want to do my part in healing or facilitating healing. I don't know how that is, but I just know that this didn't happen in a bubble. Just like people that grew up in the middle of the nation or the deep south or whatever and never went outside their small towns, or not very much, and don't like it out there in the big city because it's just really not comfortable for them. And I understand that, because guess what? Growing up out here in Los Angeles, and then, growing up out there, and then moving to where I don't know what it's like to live in a small town where the main social hub is the church, and there's nobody of color living there, and if they are, they're rare, and they're maybe tolerated, and they're just kind of like the token colored person now, and they're like not mistreated, or maybe they are, who knows, different places are different. But I don't know what it's like to grow up like that. I don't know what it's like to grow up on my reservation, because I was abducted by white people who felt entitled to just take a baby, and then abuse the fuck out of me, and treat me like I was somehow flawed and horrible and weird because they were racist. But I wouldn't know how to live on the reservation, because that wasn't my world that I grew up in. So when I go back home and I talk to my family, I can definitely feel the disconnect, and that they don't understand me, and I don't understand them, although I love them. And I do try to understand more than I once did. I once was so ignorant in that way. I assumed a lot of things. I couldn't get past my own assumptions, and I thought things were a certain way, and it's just hard to explain. I've had to really learn how to lay aside prejudice, but not prejudice in like about color or anything. Prejudice in the meaning of the word, of like prejudging how a situation is based on one or two factors, because I don't know anything about that. It's what I know could fit in a thimble compared to what they've experienced. So I have to shut my mouth and be in a, put myself in a teachable and position so I can hear. Well, that applies, I think, everywhere. I am sorry for the ways that I looked at a situation or a person and decided everything I needed to know about them based on just a couple of factors, and then didn't really take whatever they had to say as seriously, or listen for the value in what they were saying. Maybe there's a lot of what they were saying that's like, I couldn't, I wasn't going to take that anywhere, but there's always something of value. Somebody's always telling you something about themselves. And I think that as a nation, we have not done that with especially now. I know that I'm judged first by who somebody thinks that I voted for, what party they think that I belong to, what political persuasion they assume I have. And that will tell them if anything I have to say is of value or not. And I have done the same thing. Over the last year, I've really practiced catching that and then reminding myself to listen. And doesn't come naturally, because what comes naturally is for me to do that thing, that prejudge based on just a couple of things. I did that with my family when I first went there. I wasn't prejudiced against them because they're Native. I had prejudgments about how things are, why things are, yada, 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 yada. And it took me a while to realize, you know what, I need to lay that shit aside. I didn't even know I was doing it most of the time. And I know they do it with me too. But I can't control them. I can only control me. So I think that, we kind of played a part in all of this. And so I want to play a part in the solution now. So come election day, hopefully this will not be the last time I get to speak freely in America. Come election day, hopefully we get another chance, another 4 years to roll up our sleeves and do some work with each other. The Heritage Foundation is not going to stop. Trump was just, or is just, a means to an end. And they see somebody who, more than any other leader that they have supported and pushed along the road of politics because that person was going to help them further their agenda, they see more in this person somebody who would really do the radical things to actually literally do a hostile takeover of America, because he can see down the road how much gain this would be for him. And so yeah, that's why they put it all in Project 2025, the transition project. And people, I see people and I'm like, you have not even looked at this. The only thing you've looked at is that statement that he made saying, I don't know anything about that. His Agenda 47 mirrors it perfectly. The committee or whatever that he wants to create, the Department of Efficiencies that he wants to appoint Elon Musk to, that's straight out of Project 2025. All the stuff he's talking about, the deportations, how he's going to do it. Well, he doesn't really talk about how, but here and there it slips through. It's right there in writing. Project 2025 has been Project, when was it? 2019, and has been, every conservative president has gotten a transition plan from the Heritage Foundation. Why? Because the Heritage Foundation has had conversations long before that person probably was even a candidate. And then, there they are, they're the candidate, and it's moving along the way they want it to, because this person's going to do what they want them to do. And since Reagan, they have been writing the plans for their presidency. And those presidents have, for the most part, followed it. Now, what's interesting is that when Reagan did not appoint the Supreme Court justice that they wanted him to appoint, and that was a big deal because you don't get to always appoint a Supreme Court justice. And they had a pick, and it was very important that he put that person in that seat because, as you know, they serve for a lifetime. So, this is a big deal. And he didn't do that. And right after that was when he had that attempted assassination. I thought that was interesting. I'm just saying, it doesn't, that doesn't mean that they had anything to do with that. I just find it I found that interesting. It made me think a few thoughts, but there's no, I'm not saying that there was any connection. I'm just saying that it's an interesting coincidence. Anyway, Reagan implemented much of what they wanted, though, in spite of not doing that Supreme Court justice thing. And then every conservative claiming president since that they felt was conservative enough for them got their stamp of approval. Maybe they can't or openly like make announcements about who they endorsed, but they endorsed them in every other way except making an open endorsement that would jeopardize their nonprofit status. So they can't come out and say the heritage, make a press release saying that they endorse somebody, but you know who they're behind, because you just have to listen to them talk. You just have to see what they're doing. So anyway, these plans have been going on for a while. It would be more strange if they hadn't written a plan. It just happens that this one is the Hail Mary of all Hail Marys, and they're throwing it all in the pot. And so come the day after election, should we all still have free speech and the military isn't being collected to be used against citizens, and past Republican or past leaders that have dared to disagree with the past, and then whatever president, then if we're not in that pot of hot water, then we have work to do. Because if anything I've learned anything from the past few years, is that America is an incredible nation, and we have areas that are still in some ways living in a time that a lot of us, but that other people are not living in. They wouldn't know how to be comfortable in a city any more than I would know how to be comfortable in a town where there's one main street, and the church is pretty much the only place where people go to have a social life, and you talk and speak a certain way and believe a certain way, and that's just how it is, and that's your life, and it's familiar, and you feel that's your home, and that's fine. Just like for me, being living in the city, walking down a busy street full of dirt, some homeless people, and I'm not laughing at the homeless people, but it's gotten really bad, absolutely. But all of that stuff is like it's familiar to me, and like to somebody who's not from there, they're like, how do you deal with all this traffic? How do you deal with all this noise? And it's just too much. And to me, it's like it's an energy that I love and I miss, because I don't live in the deep city anymore. And so I live about 2-3 hours away from LA, and but this where I live is definitely not. I mean, you can hear the traffic. It's not like a small town, but to me it felt like it at first, but it's not. And I like where I live, but there are people who it would be as foreign to them as where they live to me. What they've experienced and how they've been shaped in life would be as foreign to me as how I've been shaped in life and what I've experienced growing up in a city. So I can't understand or connect until I understand that we're not the same in some ways. In the most important ways we are. And that's great. But that's not going to mean anything until I start listening. And I start working towards understanding why somebody comes from where they're at. Now, there's some people where that's just not going to work. They're so hateful, they're so angry, they're so eaten up with really deep type of I don't know what the word is for it, but they really want to hurt people that aren't like them. That's all they want to do. That's their goal. They feel like it's the best thing that they can do with their life. And anybody who says anything different, well, they don't want anything to do with them, and that's just the end of it. Those people, I'm not really interested in having any conversation with them or reaching across the aisle any more than they are interested in that with me, and that's okay. But luckily, in the grand scheme of things, with all the people that live in this nation, that's a very small faction. I think the rest of us are, even the ones that are, I just think that there's a lot of area for us to move in to find our way back to each other. And that's what I want to commit to in some way, be part of that solution if we still have an America that's free after Election Day. Because we only have 4 years after that. Because the Heritage Foundation is not stopping. There's another election. There will be another person coming up saying all the same things and trying to keep everybody angry. Or at least their people angry and full of hate and convinced that somebody else is the reason they have a problem and that those somebody else's need to be dealt with. And that they are the person that should do it. So elect me. There will be somebody else shouting that, that message, playing that tune, and I think that's just how it's going to be. But I think that the groundswell needs to come from us who are tired of this. As I know in me, I have a longing to have some meaningful conversations with people that do not vote like me or do not have the same exact beliefs. I want to find that connection again, because a lot of these people were my friends, but I have a hard time feeling like they're my friends when I see that they're promoting things that specifically say Nadine should be shot. Because that's what it really comes down to when I see the things that they're saying on their social media pages and stuff. That's really what it comes down to. Nadine, the Nadines, and the people that look like her and vote like her and whatever. Violence to them all, and it's like, I don't even think that they realize that that's what they're saying and doing, but because to them it's an ideology, but to the people who are in power, that's not an ideology. That's a plan. And it's a plan. It's their reality, or what they hope to be reality. It's not ideology to them. They're dead serious about that shit. So I'm tired of that, and I want to be part of a solution that involves finding our way back to unity, practicing these principles in all my affairs, figuring out how to reach across the aisle who those are willing to reach back. And it doesn't mean that we have to agree with each other. I think we can find a way to reconnect with each other and still disagree about politics. And stop acting like and buying into the lie that somehow half of our nation deserves to be called enemies of the state and traitors and deserving of every bad thing. Come on. It's getting old. The gaslighting, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of hearing the racist, horrible rhetoric from the pulpit on that side, and then having people tell me, oh, that's not what you heard. It's not what you saw. It is. It's exactly what I heard and I saw. It's dangerous. It has no place in America. And it's time that we raise our standards. So, alrighty, well, I'm gonna go, and I am hopeful. I believe in the human spirit. I believe that America is already a great. I was so glad to hear. I think it was Tim Walz that said it. Because I told my husband that like a year or two ago, or maybe it was during the last, I was like, I'm so tired of hearing about how horrible America is. America is already great. Why are we letting somebody tell us that it's not? This is a great nation with great people. And I think that we need to find our way back to that common ground. That's all. So, um, yeah, I'm sad that elections have become so dangerous. I'm really irritated that, again, I mean, I have a lot of friends in recovery. I'm a recovering addict. I have a lot of other friends that are recovering addicts, and they are smart and savvy, and they can see through stuff. But man, how can they not see a dope fiend move when it's right there in front of their face, telling everybody, well, if I don't win, then obviously, the election was stolen. That's such a dope fiend move. Ahead of time? Did you say that? That's what happened last time. And people were like, yeah, and then when he didn't, election was stolen. No, he just lost. That can happen too. Now we've got some interesting things happening with ballots. And like this one thing, it was like two things that happened. I think one was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And she was up there, lecturing everybody about how horrible it is that this happened and that it was a concerted effort, yada, yada, yada. And then she said the only two people that we could identify as far as their political party is concerned, are the two people that were working in the voting election office or something like that, and they had written on their application that they were Democrat. But we're talking about voters. One of the easiest things to find out about a citizen is what party they are. But you're saying that with all the investigating that you did, you could only identify those two people that were Democrat? They could have written anything on that application. What were they last year and the year before that and all of that? What does their history say? Because I'm kind of like, I'm finding it really suspicious that those were the only two you could identify. That doesn't make sense to me. And then the other one was like, this big plan to put in all these fraudulent ballots, but it was done so poorly, and they did it in so many different ways, like wrong signature and this person, and that, just all the different ways that you shouldn't be voting, and it was fraudulent. They did it, but they did it so poorly and so obviously that they got caught right away. And I'm like, and of course they're like, oh, and they're Democrats too. It's like, okay, but it just seemed like, part of me was like, this is like a scene from a bad movie. But it definitely gives credence now to be used to be like, see, I told you. Now everything is contested. It's just, that's just my thinking about that. I'm tired about all of that. Let's just have an election. Because voter fraud, and I did a whole video on that. I did some research, and I actually got my numbers from the Heritage Foundation, and they proved how small of a percentage ballots are that are fraudulent. Like tiny percentage. I think only one incident I saw that actually affected the election, and that was in a small town. And it was the Republican candidate, and it was the Republican side that actually had committed the fraud, and I think he got convicted. But that was like, there's the times where it happens is very, 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 very small, and if and those numbers being able to affect an election, it just hasn't happened. So. Yeah, then all of a sudden these big cases of all of these, it's like, I just don't see that anybody would be that sloppy when they know people are like eyeballing everything now, which is good. But and then it's just interesting. And then the whole fact that he's already laid the groundwork. Oh yeah, basically, if I don't win, then it was a stolen election. So, and here we go again, and people are just buying it, eating it up. People that can read through bullshit. If I were to do that, any other way, if I were to do that, if I were to tell my sponsor, if I don't get that raise, it's because of this and that, and I haven't been going to work and working, doing a shitty job at work, and I'm like, if I don't get a raise, that it's because they're racist. And she would be like, maybe it's because you haven't done the job. Maybe you just don't get the raise, like, I don't know. I mean, that's probably a bad comparison, but you know what I mean? It's like, come on. You're already laying the groundwork just to pre-justify not accepting an election you don't like the results for. It's exhausting. I just want to get in the solution and stay there and find other people who want to get into the solution too, and to find our way back to each other, and to find our way back to being able to disagree and yet still love and respect each other and still have conversations, and to stop saying things that are harmful, stop saying things that promote a national sense of violence towards whole sections of our population, to be able to talk about policy and want it to be based on information and things that policy needs to be based on, and not race and not color. I agree that our borders need some fixing. I agree that our immigration policy needs some fixing. Absolutely. Never said I don't. I just don't agree. My heart and my soul hurts and is absolutely horrified at the way parts of our citizenship has been pointed at people who are non-white as the enemy, because they came from somewhere else and they are immigrants. I mean, I'm just like appalled. So yeah, we could do better. Absolutely. It wouldn't even be hard to do better, because we're doing so bad in that area that doing better would be fucking easy, And I think once we start feeling that feeling again of like doing better with each other, we would remember, oh yeah, this does feel better. Unity feels better than separation. Compassion feels better than hate. Fairness feels better than injustice. That's what makes a person great and a nation great. Not hating the same people together. So, anyway, I'm going to get going. I'll talk to you later. Bye.